Hi, and welcome back to Pinky Boo Hauntings. I'll be your witchy host, Shy, and I'll be your guide to all things paranormal, weird, and spooky. Guys, I'm not gonna lie, work took a lot out of me this weekend. They really believe we can handle far more orders than humanly possible for our crew. So my brain is shot, and I don't know how to open this episode. So, how about we get right into it, huh? Our first story is called The White Witch. In the early 80s, I lived in Okinawa, Japan. My dad thought that seeing the world would be an adventure that would help my brother and I become better men. And I have to say, I think he was right. I mean, yeah, getting to experience more of the world in other cultures will help broaden your overall view of things, which of course will help you be a better person. Usually, because you will start to see things from a different perspective. And surprisingly, your empathy for others will grow with it. I believe everyone should broaden their worldview. Doesn't mean you have to travel the world, of course. Most of us can't afford that. But the world would probably be a better place if we all actually try to learn about each other's cultures from the people themselves. Anyways, sorry, that's enough of my little tangent. Let's get back to the story. Being in the military showed me cultures many would never get to experience. And I am thankful for every experience that this life gave me, even the scary ones. Ooh, is the White Witch going to be one of the scary ones? Because I figured this was going to be a good story since White Witches are usually considered good. At least from an outsider's perspective, I think that's how they'd see it. While we lived in Japan, my father wanted us to have a fully immersive experience. So he chose to move us all into a small Japanese neighborhood off base. Can I just say how jealous I am that you got to not only visit Japan but live there? I've always felt this pull towards Japan. As far back as I can remember, I've always wanted to visit. And I don't know why. I mean, I do know, but as a tiny child, I don't know why I felt called to go there. If I could ever get over my fear of flying, who knows, maybe I'll visit one day. We lived in a little house at the top of an enormous hill in a cul-de-sac that overlooked, I kid you not, part of a huge zoo and on one side a fairly large cemetery. Our particular house was set far above the monkey habitats, about a mile downhill. Between us and those habitats was nothing but thick Indiana Jones style jungle. Jungle the neighborhood kids and I would tromp through endlessly, ignoring the local warnings about poisonous snakes and ancient untripped mines from World War II. Wow, that sounds like the perfect place for kids to play. What could ever go wrong? We were the only American family living in this cul de sac, completely surrounded by Japanese families, and it was amazing. The kids loved us, and although we couldn't communicate through language very well, we understood each other perfectly. Well, most of the time. I was just wondering how good your Japanese might have been, but I'm not surprised that you all were able to understand each other without fully speaking each other's language. Kids will always find a way to play. Language barrier be damned. There are a lot of adults that could really learn from kids in this regard. Opposite us was an older couple with a lush garden surrounding their property. The older woman wanted us to call her Mama San, and she had us helping in the garden whenever she could coax us over with green tea and chocolate banana cookies. We loved her. She was so welcoming and generous, as was everyone else, actually. We lived in a wonderful neighborhood. The only drawback to Mama San's house, however, was that she directly overlooked the cemetery. And that cemetery was unlike any cemetery I had ever seen before. I thought you were going to say that the only problem was that Mama-san was the witch that scared you. So I'm happy that's not true. She sounds so nice. I didn't want this to be a plot twist. Because Okinawa is an island, burials don't happen very often. Instead, above ground crypts are built, many of them built into the sides of the hills that make up the island. The crypts are huge, made of huge arcs of polished stone set over a large square of that stone, which has a square insert cut into the middle of it for the coffin to be placed inside. Once inside, the square is inset with another piece of polished stone just inside, leaving a kind of shelf on the outside so offerings could be made to the lost loved ones. Yen, food, flowers, incense are some of the offerings given. Below Mama San's house was a valley that swooped back up into another hill opposite her house. That valley and both hills were covered with these crepes and spider webbing up and down. Through the crepes were various stone paths that were old and badly maintained. It was quite a sight. I almost wish there was a picture of this, 'cause I kind of want to see what it looked like, from your view at least. It sounds like an insane sight for sure. One evening, Mama-san asked me to come visit her alone. She had something to show me, but it was only for me as the older brother. Oh shit, was Mama-san the White Witch after all? Intrigued and a bit proud, I agreed. She took me to the back of her garden and sat me on a thick wooden bench that was carved with the scene of a fisherman and men with swords, and told me she had a story to tell. Mama-san then disappeared for a few minutes and soon returned with a tray that held hot green tea and sweet rice cakes. Sitting next to me, she smiled and commented on the colors of the evening sky as the sun began to lower. Mama-san said she had seen me, my brother, and some other kids daring each other to follow the stairway path down into the cemetery. You have to understand, this path from our little home area down to the cemetery consisted of hundreds of steps, many broken or cracking in and out of bushes and at a steep incline. It would be dangerous for anyone, but the real test was seeing how long we could take walking through the crypts at night. Mama-san wanted to explain why this was a bad idea. Oh, okay. Mama-san is just doing her grandmother duties for the kids and keeping them safe. Many years ago, during the war, Americans were thought to be devils, monsters that would murder innocent civilians for no reason other than to kill. I mean, I don't blame them for thinking that, especially with how things are right now. We kind of believe that ourselves. That fear was the product of wartime propaganda used to encourage young men to military service and farmers to fight alongside them. But many didn't. Many ran. And with nowhere to go, nowhere to hide, hundreds of Japanese citizens hurled themselves off of the cliff sides rather than to face torture at the hands of their perceived enemy. I was terrified at hearing this. I don't blame you. I don't know how old you were in this story, but that's kind of a lot to unload on a child. I had no idea this had happened. I was mortified and hit with such sadness. I started to cry. The sun was setting and the sky went from pink and blue to a deep orange and red. Mama-san reached out and held my hand, telling me not to worry. This was in the past. In the past is something we must always remember so we never go back. She went on with her story. Mama San is a smart lady. I like her. One young lady had followed through with the sacrifice with her two children, but she survived the fall. She was in a coma for months. When she did regain consciousness, she was horrified to realize she was not with her children. They had been buried somewhere in the cemetery below, in an unmarked crypt that held many others. The woman would spend days and nights searching the cemetery, crying in pain, the torment of her loss unbearable, until the day she threw herself into the ocean to hopefully be reunited with her lost family. They say she never found her children. Her act of suicide doomed her to purgatory. She would remain tormented for eternity. The sun had disappeared, the cemetery drawn in an inky blackness, the main path dotted with dim, broken lights, feebly illuminating small areas. Mama San continued. She still wanders the cemetery, she said, looking for her kids. You can hear her crying. And then she pointed down. I didn't want to, but I did. I looked. In the back of the cemetery, in the darkness, there was a white figure. At first, a bright, white shimmer, moving slowly, kind of shaking. It moved from side to side, like it was moving along the crypt, and you could actually hear the crying. Softly at first, but then low moans and whimpers of pain as it got closer. I was terrified. I wanted to run, but Mama San held my hand and whispered that she wouldn't come up here. We were too far, but that is why we shouldn't go down there after dark. She said many don't know her story and call her the White Witch, which angers her. It's best to stay away. It's best to pray for her. Mama San said she comes out to see her often, hoping that one day she will find her salvation. Needless to say, I never went down to that cemetery, not once. And I never sat back there with Mama San again either. That was enough for me. I did, however, visit Suicide Hill. It's called Peace Prayer Park now, out of respect. I cried the whole time we were there. I prayed for all of the souls and for forgiveness. So many Japanese citizens spoke to us, welcoming us, telling us stories, sharing with us. I didn't feel worthy, and my love for this country and its people was overwhelming. I'll never forget my time there. I'd like to go back to see if she's still there, wandering the graves looking for her children. Okay, so the White Witch wasn't actually a witch, but a possible lost spirit looking for her children? I do think it is really sweet that Mama San was so caring for that spirit. She seems to understand that the lady is sad for all the things that she had went through and done. And I just love that she seems to be almost looking out for the spirit to keep people from disturbing her in her search. I do hope she was reunited with her children in the afterlife and has found peace. I'm also not surprised you so clearly saw a ghost in Japan of all places. I don't know what it is about it, but Japan seems to be a heavily charged place for the paranormal. Alright, let's move on to our last story for today. By the title, I hope it's a crazy one. It's called I'm an Undertaker and Something Happened. Something happened, and I've always been skeptical until today. I was about to say, Not another person that claims to be a skeptic while telling us a paranormal story that can't be explained away. I am an Undertaker, and I have been for the past 8 years. I've always been skeptical when it comes to the afterlife, especially the paranormal. But today, something happened that I cannot explain. I was cleaning unclaimed ashes out of the funeral home where I work. We are moving out of the old Victorian building we operate out of into a new funeral home. Why is it always a Victorian building? I don't really know how those buildings were built, but is there something about them that seems to make them a magnet for the paranormal? Does anyone have an answer to this? For the past week, we have been making a slow transition, moving out of our current home into our new one. In our basement, we have unclaimed ashes going as far back as the 1970s. I just had my headphones in, putting the boxes into bags so we could send them to the local crematorium for them to be scattered. I must have put away hundreds of boxes of ashes without even thinking about it. I was just listening to a podcast. Ooh, you know what? Now that you believe in the paranormal, you should listen to ours. We could add another little witch to the coven. Sorry, I know the joke was bad, but can you blame me for making it? It's so easy. It was like right there. What did you want from me? Anyways, they were just getting another task checked off their to do list while not listening to our podcast. That's not nice. Alright, enough of my bad jokes. And I was putting one box into a bag and felt my body and my brain freeze with the word no, but I didn't hear anything. It's hard to explain what I felt. Oh, I know exactly what you felt, but let's see how they explain it. I want to know if it actually is what I'm thinking. The best I can explain it is that my own free will had gone, and I was ordered to stop what I was doing. I stopped immediately and put the box of ashes in my hand onto the table. That's because something is there and it wants to get your attention. Maybe it wants to stop you for some reason. I am happy you listened, even if it was kind of out of your control. On closer inspection, there were two boxes I was going to put in two separate bags, one small box and one normal size box. Let's just say, for privacy reasons, one box was labeled Hannah Williams. On top of Hannah Williams' ashes, there was a box labeled Baby Williams. I presume they are mother and baby, who I was about to separate into two separate bags, which I find quite spooky because I didn't read the labels before. Oh my god, she didn't want to be separated from her baby. That's why she wanted so desperately to stop you and get you to pay attention. I am happy you corrected that mistake once you noticed what you were about to do. I was doing a mundane task as fast as I could with my existing duties and clearing the premises. I was just trying to get things done as fast as possible and was not paying attention to the names. I just needed to get this done. So, yeah, I can't explain this for the life of me. I cannot come up with an explanation for this. I'm not scared, nor am I excited about what I felt. I just feel confused about the whole situation. The only explanation there really is for this is the spirit stopped you from separating her from her baby. I've had this happen many times where a spirit will make me feel frozen and like I can't move my body, as well as hearing a voice in my head give me the information I need in that moment. It is a weird feeling for sure. Have any of you ever felt this before? If you have, send me an email with your story. Or if you have any paranormal stories you'd like me to read, send it to pinkyboohauntings at gmail. I'd love to hear from you guys. Oh, and the email will also be in the show notes in the description below. And if you're enjoying the podcast, please consider rating and reviewing wherever you're listening to this, as well as like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. You can also help grow our little coven by sharing the podcast with others that are into the paranormal. Or hell, send it to someone that doesn't believe so we can make a believer out of them. But for now, the coven is adjourned. See you next time. Bye.